Something a little different today. A lot of you have asked to hear about my personal astral projection experiences, what I see there and what I actually do. Well, here's a recent experience I had that truly blew me away. It all started with one simple question that hit me out of nowhere after my recent surgery. It was about 2 weeks after. I was lying there one night healing, when this thought came out of the blue. Where did my consciousness go while I was under the anesthesia? Because if consciousness is eternal, if it exists in this state of timeless nowness that so many of us experience in meditation or psychedelics, then where was it when my human brain was completely switched off? What was it doing when my body had no awareness, no memory, no functioning sensory input? That question, it just wouldn't leave me alone. So I decided to find out. I set the intention to astral project, but not just for exploration. This was more like an experiment, to trace the thread of awareness itself, to follow it back to wherever it goes when the lights of the human body are turned off. Before I get into what happened, I want to make something clear, because I'll be making another video on this in the future. There are two very different kinds of astral projection. There's pre-ego death projection, and then there's post-ego death projection. Before ego death, you still feel like a little human visiting the spirit world. You have a body, you meet entities, you get swept away by the story. It's fascinating but also full of illusion, like a lucid dream on a cosmic scale. After ego death though, everything changes. Because when you've integrated that insight, that you're not a separate self, when you've merged that understanding into your day-to-day consciousness, then the astral transforms completely. You don't go anywhere, you unveil. You don't see a landscape, you become awareness itself. You don't meet beings, you remember that you are them. You dissolve into the loving glow of eternity, and everything just is. You think, and instantly you explore the totality of that thought. There's no time, no movement, just infinite knowing. That's usually what happens to me now when I astral project, but this time was different. The moment I slipped out, I could feel it, immediately. This wasn't the formless light of source that I was used to. This time there was a me. I was still connected to the One, still held by that infinite love, but there was also a world, an out there. I found myself standing on what looked like a nature trail, and it was alive in a way that's hard to describe. Imagine the most beautiful forest you've ever seen, but magnified by infinity. Words just cannot do it justice. It was stunning. The trees were colossal, redwood-like, but even that doesn't describe the immensity of these things. They rose so high they disappeared into an endless glowing canopy, and every single one of those trees was conscious. I could feel them, not just sense them. I could feel their awareness interwoven with mine, like roots of light tangled through my being. There was no separation between my thoughts and theirs. Our communication wasn't through words, but through a kind of loving knowing. It wasn't me and the tree, it was we, but somehow I still retained this thin thread of individuality, like a dream character still half aware. I looked down at myself, and that's when I realized I wasn't physical anymore. I was light, a humanoid shape made entirely of luminescence. Every footstep sent ripples through the soil, but not physical ripples. I could feel each grain beneath my feet, millions of them, and I could count them instantly if I wanted to. I knew their geological origins, where they'd been, how long they'd existed. the pressure that shaped them. And it wasn't that I was analysing, it was that the knowledge was just there, instantly available, like I was plugged into the total database of reality. Even the pebbles were stories, and the air was filled with laughter. It took me a moment to realise it was coming from the flowers. They looked like giant daisies, tall and radiant with oversized petals that shimmered like liquid light. But they weren't just beautiful, they were funny. Their energy radiated humour, this cosmic playfulness like they were in on some grand joke that I was only just starting to get. They were teasing me lovingly, making jokes through vibration rather than words, and I found myself laughing too. Not with my mouth, but with my entire being. The whole forest was alive with joy, and yet beneath it all, I could feel something shifting, a sense that this radiant journey was leading somewhere, like the trees and flowers were gently guiding me towards something important. And that's when I saw it. At the end of the trail, there was a small wooden shack, except it wasn't really wood, it was perfect geometry, like a shed designed by God. Every line, every angle, every proportion was flawless, radiating a kind of sacred symmetry. I knew I was supposed to go inside, and as I did, everything changed. The moment I stepped inside that perfect little shack, the atmosphere shifted completely. The forest's laughter faded into stillness. It wasn't dark, but it wasn't light either. It kind of felt like being inside a thought. It's very hard to describe. The interior was simple. A single seat, a projector, and a silver screen hanging on the wall. It looked ordinary, but the symmetry was so exact that it made me feel watched, like the room itself was conscious. I sat down, then the projector flickered on. A beam of light shot across the room, and as it struck the silver screen, reality dissolved. I was no longer watching the film, I was in it. Suddenly, I was back in the hospital. The lighting, the smell of antiseptic, the beeps of machines, everything was exactly as it had been before my surgery. It was really incredible, like I was truly there. And I was me again, flesh and blood, nervous, lying on the bed with a cannula in my hand. It was happening exactly as I remembered, only now I could feel it with complete lucidity. Every heartbeat, every anxious thought, the nurse leaning over me, the anaesthetist adjusting something. Then the flood of anesthetic hit my veins. I told the doctor about how it kind of felt like DMT, and he said, "What's that?" And I replied that it's psychedelic, and in that moment I sensed his judgment. I was experiencing his thoughts of, "This guy's a druggy idiot," which was jarring because this doctor was supposed to be taking care of me. And as my eyes began to close, I felt myself detach. I floated up. Suddenly I was hovering near the ceiling, watching my own body slip into unconsciousness. It didn't feel scary or even strange. It felt natural, like taking a jacket off. It was all very dispassionate. Below me I could see the surgeons and nurses beginning their work. But what blew my mind was that I could feel them. I could feel what each one of them was feeling. The surgeon's concentration, the nurse's calm focus, the faint anxiety in one of the assistants who was still new. I could sense their thoughts, the way you sense music intuitively, effortlessly. There was no judgment, no invasion, just empathy. The whole scene was this intricate dance of compassion and precision, every movement synchronized, every breath guided by some invisible intelligence that I could feel orchestrating everything. And this whole time, I was watching my own body, this empty shell lying there, breathing mechanically. It was strange seeing it from the outside. There was no attachment, no sadness, just the understanding that this was my vessel, my interface with the physical world. It was like watching a mechanic fix my car, while I waited patiently. I realized that my consciousness hadn't gone anywhere when the anesthesia hit. It had simply unplugged. It had stepped back into itself. I watched the entire surgery from that higher perspective. Time didn't move normally. It was all happening in the now. Moments expanded and collapsed. I could drift from one instant to another at will, observing every minute detail. And then, just as smoothly, the scene began to fade. The doctors were finishing up. My body was stirring, and I felt the magnetic pull, like gravity but spiritual. A gentle force calling me back down. Then click, like a light switch, I was back in the seat in the cinema. The screen was blank, the projector off. And I just sat there stunned, because in that moment I understood what had happened. My consciousness never left existence. It simply stepped out of the body, watched the whole process, and then slipped back in when the brain was ready to receive it again. It wasn't some big cosmic mystery. It was simple, obvious even. Consciousness is the constant. It doesn't depend on the body depends on it. The brain isn't creating consciousness, it's tuning into it, like a radio picking up a signal. And when the radio switches off, the broadcast doesn't stop, it just keeps going, beyond the range of your human perception. That's what I experienced, that's what I saw. I remember sitting there in that divine cinema, just glowing with the enormity of that realization. All the fear around death, around non-existence, around the end of the self, it just evaporated. Because I knew, even if the body goes under, even if the mind shuts down, the awareness behind it all keeps watching. It doesn't sleep, it simply is, always. And that, to me, changes everything. It means that what we call life and death are just transitions in focus. The dreamer never dies, it just shifts the dream. When I came back to my physical body, I woke up buzzing. It wasn't like a normal return, it was like I'd brought half the astral light back with me. Every cell in my body was vibrating with that knowing, and I just lay there thinking, that's it, that's the truth of it. The consciousness that's hearing my voice right now, the awareness behind your eyes, that's the same thing that was watching me in the astral theatre. It's the same awareness watching you have your story. And when this little dream of flesh and time and memory finally ends, that same awareness will just keep on watching, through new eyes, new stories, new worlds. Because it never began, and what never began can never end. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. I plan on making a series of these videos, chronicling my journeys in the astral realm, and my psychedelic experiences too. If that's something you think you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments. Until next time, keep dreaming.